Zara, an alien girl from a distant planet, stood nervously at the entrance of a human school. This was her first mission, a task that would bring her face to face with a completely new world, a world filled with emotions, history, and most importantly, humans. She had been carefully chosen by her people for this mission. Zara was intelligent, curious, and most of all, open-minded, qualities that made her an ideal candidate for learning about Earth's strange and complex culture. Her journey had been long, and now, standing at the edge of the school's large glass door, she could hardly contain her excitement. The otherworldly nature of her mission made her feel like a stranger in a foreign land. The sounds of children laughing and chattering on the playground felt so different from her quiet home planet, where everything was orderly and predictable. The air smelled of grass, chalk, and books, a scent she had never experienced before. Zara stepped inside. She was immediately struck by how colorful and loud everything was. The walls were filled with posters, and the classrooms were filled with desks, chairs, and children sitting in rows, chatting with one another in languages that sounded like nothing she had ever heard before. Her heart raced with excitement, but she also felt a bit nervous. This was going to be much harder than she had imagined. Her alien form, with its soft, glowing green skin and long, straight hair, immediately caught the attention of the students. Zara looked around, aware that everyone was staring at her, their eyes wide with curiosity. She had expected this. After all, humans had never met an alien before. But now, as all eyes were on her, she couldn't help but feel a little out of place. She wasn't used to such attention. She was escorted to her seat at the front of the classroom by a teacher with kind eyes, Mr. Davis. His smile was warm, but Zara couldn't shake the feeling that she didn't belong. As she sat down, she tried to adjust to the human way of sitting at a desk. The seat felt strange, and the desk was cluttered with papers, pencils, and books. She looked at the other students, each one engrossed in their own world, their focus sharp while she felt completely disconnected from it all. Mr. Davis, noticing her discomfort, smiled and introduced her to the class. "Class, this is Zara. She's from another planet, and she's here to learn about our school and our ways. Let's give her a warm welcome." The students clapped politely, but Zara could tell they were still uncertain about her presence. She was too different, too alien. The lesson began, and Mr. Davis started talking about something called history, something Zara had never heard of before. The teacher spoke about ancient Earth civilizations, wars, and rulers, all of which seemed foreign to her. She had read about Earth's history before, but the way humans talked about it with so much emotion and passion was unlike anything she had experienced. Zara could feel her mind starting to race as she tried to understand the human concept of history. Why were these humans so invested in stories of the past? Wasn't the future more important? She didn't know it yet, but this moment, this lesson, would be the first of many that would challenge her very understanding of her world. The more Mr. Davis spoke, the more Zara began to feel a growing sense of confusion. The concept of time, the wars, the emotions, they all seemed so chaotic. Her species was known for its calm and logical ways. Emotions like love, sadness, and anger were alien to them, but these humans seemed to live their entire lives wrapped in emotions. Zara stared at the chalkboard as Mr. Davis drew a timeline of human history. She understood the words, but they didn't make sense to her. Why did humans care so much about their past? Why were they so focused on what had happened before? Why couldn't they simply look ahead and solve the problems they faced in the present and future? Her head began to throb as she struggled to comprehend the strange world she had just entered. The constant buzz of human chatter, the sounds of pencils tapping against desks, and the energy in the room were all so overwhelming. It felt like the walls were closing in on her. The classroom, once full of wonder and excitement, now felt suffocating. Then, something unexpected happened. As Mr. Davis moved on to a lesson about human emotions, something about love, happiness, and sorrow, Zara felt an uncomfortable heat rise in her chest. It wasn't just the confusion anymore. It was something she had never experienced before. Her heart started to race and her face turned bright red. She had heard of emotions before, but now, sitting in this classroom, surrounded by these strange humans, Zara could feel them. Their presence. Their feelings. They were overwhelming her. Her chest tightened, and she couldn't breathe. She needed to get out. Hook. Without thinking, Zara stood up abruptly. The students turned to look at her, their faces filled with curiosity and surprise. Her eyes widened and she quickly turned to the door. She had to leave. She couldn't take it anymore. As she rushed out of the room, she could hear Mr. Davis calling after her, but she didn't stop. Her mind was spinning, her body trembling. She had never felt like this before. What was happening to her? Why couldn't she control these emotions? The only thing she could think of was to escape. Zara ran down the hall, her footsteps echoing. In the empty corridor, the weight of the human world too much for her to bear. Zara's feet carried her down the hallway as if they were on autopilot. Her heart thumped in her chest, her breath shallow. The chaos of the classroom, the strange emotions she was experiencing, and the overwhelming words of Mr. Davis all collided inside her mind. She stumbled out into the schoolyard, the cool breeze hitting her face as she leaned against a brick wall. The world around her seemed so loud, so overwhelming. She closed her eyes, taking in deep breaths to steady herself. "What's wrong with me?" she whispered to herself. In her world, emotions were a mere whisper in the background of a structured life. There was logic, order, and reason. There was no space for wild, unpredictable feelings. But here, in the human world, emotions seemed to control everything. They were everywhere. She could feel the weight of them in the air, in the people around her, in the way they spoke, even in the way they breathed. It was too much. She had to leave. She couldn't handle it. But as she stood there, trying to calm herself, a voice called, out from behind her, "Hey, are you all right?" A young girl with blonde hair and a kind smile stepped into view. She was dressed in the same school uniform as the others, but there was something about her, something in her eyes, that made Zara feel like she could trust her. Zara hesitated. She had never met a human outside of the classroom, and now she was feeling exposed, vulnerable. But this girl, she didn't seem to be judging her. She looked at Zara with genuine concern. I don't know," Zara stammered, her voice trembling slightly. "Everything is just so overwhelming. The school, the emotions, I don't understand it." The girl nodded, as if she understood exactly what Zara was talking about. "It's okay," she said gently, sitting down next to Zara on the ledge. "I felt the same way when I first started. It can be a lot to take in." Zara glanced at the girl, confused. "You felt this way?" The girl laughed softly, her laughter like music to Zara's ears. "Yeah, we all do at first, but over time it starts to make sense." She paused, her gaze softening. "I'm Lily, by the way." "I'm Zara," Zara replied, her voice still shaky but calmer now. Lily smiled warmly, then looked out at the schoolyard, watching the students as they went about their activities. "You know," she said thoughtfully, "school isn't just about learning facts or math, it's about learning to understand each other. Emotions are part of that. They help us connect, and they help us grow." Zara looked at her, not quite understanding. "But I don't want to feel all of this. It's too much. It's like I can't breathe sometimes." "I know," Lily said, her tone serious. "But the thing about emotions is they don't just overwhelm you. They also give you something back, something you can't get from logic alone. They make you feel alive. Don't you want to understand what it feels like to be human?" Zara's mind whirred as she processed Lily's words. She had always relied on logic, never allowing herself to feel too deeply, always keeping her distance from others. But now, here in this foreign world, something was shifting. She had to admit, there was something intriguing about the way Lily spoke. She seemed so at ease with the emotions that Zara had found so terrifying, but the fear was still there. Zara's hands clenched at her sides as she remembered the feeling of her heart racing in the classroom. The fear was real, and she wasn't sure if she could face it again. Lily turned to Zara, her eyes full of kindness. "You don't have to do it all at once," she said softly. "Just take it one step at a time. Come back to class, and if you feel overwhelmed again, we'll take a break. We can work through it together." Zara looked at her torn. Part of her wanted to run, to escape back to her safe, quiet world where nothing ever surprised her. But another part, a part she didn't recognize, felt drawn to this experience. There was something about the way Lily spoke, something about the way the other students interacted with each other, that made Zara want to stay. She wanted to understand these emotions, to understand human connection. She wasn't sure she could handle it, but she couldn't turn back now. After a moment of silence, Zara stood up, feeling a new sense of resolve. "Okay," she said, her voice steady. "I'll go back, but only if you promise me one thing." Lily raised an eyebrow. "What's that?" "You'll help me. If I start to panic again, I'll need someone to help me through it." Lily smiled, her eyes sparkling with warmth. "Of course, Zara. We'll get through it together." Zara took a deep breath and followed Lily back into the school building. As they walked, Zara felt a strange mixture of fear and excitement. She was heading back into the classroom, back into the unknown. The emotions, the chaos, everything was still there, still waiting for her. But now she wasn't facing it alone. Turning point. As they entered the classroom, Zara could feel the eyes of the other students on her. The room fell silent as Mr. Davis looked up, a welcoming smile spreading across his face. Zara's heart raced again, but this time she didn't feel like running. She had made it this far, and now with Lily's support she was ready to face whatever came next. The emotions, the fear, the confusion, it was all still there, but Zara was starting to believe that maybe, just maybe, she could learn to navigate this world. Slowly but surely, she was beginning to understand what it meant to be human. Zara sat quietly at her desk, the lesson moving forward around her, but her mind was far away. She had returned to class after her conversation with Lily, and although the students had greeted her with polite smiles, she felt as if she was still outside their world looking in. The classroom felt both familiar and foreign at the same time. The walls seemed to close in on her as she tried to follow the lesson, but her thoughts were preoccupied with the whirlwind of emotions she had just begun to experience. Mr. Davis was talking about human history again, but Zara could hardly focus on the words. Instead, her mind kept circling back to what Lily had said, that emotions, even though overwhelming, were important. They were what connected people. But Zara wasn't sure how to connect to these emotions. How could she when she still didn't understand them? She stole a glance at the students around her. Some of them seemed so calm, so immersed in the lesson. They didn't seem to feel the way she did, this constant bubbling of anxiety, confusion, and curiosity. She wondered if they had always understood these emotions, if they had always known how to handle them. Or was it something they had learned over time? Suddenly, a wave of panic hit her chest. She could feel her heart pounding, her palms sweating. Her breath quickened and she looked down at her notebook, trying to distract herself, but the words blurred in front of her eyes. She was starting to feel like the walls were closing in again, like everything was too much. She couldn't breathe. She raised her hand slowly, trying to signal Mr. Davis. He saw her immediately and paused, his warm smile still on his face. "Zara, are you all right?" Zara swallowed hard, trying to steady her racing heartbeat. I don't think I can understand all of this," she said, her voice shaking despite her best efforts to sound calm. "These emotions, I don't know how to feel them like you all do. It's too much." Mr. Davis looked at her with understanding, a look she hadn't expected. "It's okay, Zara. You don't have to have everything figured out all at once. Emotions can be confusing even for us humans. We're all still learning about them and we all experience them differently." Zara blinked in surprise. She had assumed that humans, who seemed to understand emotions so naturally, had mastered them completely. But hearing Mr. Davis's words made her realize that even they were still figuring it out. It didn't make her feel less overwhelmed, but it did make her feel less alone. The class continued, but Zara found it hard to focus. Her thoughts kept drifting back to the emotions she was struggling to understand. What did love really feel like? Why did people cry? What made them laugh? These were all things she had read about in her studies, but reading about something and feeling it were two completely different things. She felt like she was standing on the edge of a vast ocean, too afraid to dive in. As the lesson ended, the students began to pack up their things, preparing to head to their next class. Zara sat there, still feeling the weight of confusion pressing on her chest. Her head was spinning. She wasn't sure how much more she could take. That's when Lily appeared again, sitting down beside her without a word. She didn't need to ask what was wrong. She could tell from Zara's face that the struggle was still very much present. The weight of it all was still pressing down on her. "You did great today," Lily said softly. "You faced your fears. Coming back to class was a big step." Zara shook her head. "But it doesn't feel like enough. I can't understand how everyone else just seems to get it. They feel all of these things without thinking, without even trying. And then there's me, overthinking everything, feeling lost." Lily placed a comforting hand on Zara's shoulder. "It's not about getting it right all at once. You don't have to have everything figured out today. The important thing is that you're trying. It's okay to feel lost sometimes. It's okay to not know everything right now." Zara stared at the desk in front of her, her mind racing with a million thoughts. She had never felt so uncertain, so vulnerable. Back home, everything made sense. There was always a logical answer to everything. Emotions, however, didn't have a clear answer. They were messy, unpredictable, and sometimes painful. But they were also real, and they were a part of being human. "I don't know if I can do this," Zara whispered, her voice barely audible. Lily gave her a warm, reassuring smile. "You already are, Zara. Just by being here, just by trying, you're already doing it. You don't have to have all the answers, just take it one step at a time and you'll figure it out. We all do." Zara's heart calmed a little at Lily's words. She still wasn't sure if she could fully embrace these strange, overpowering emotions, but maybe Lily was right. Maybe it wasn't about understanding everything right away. Maybe it was about taking small steps, learning to accept these feelings as they came, even if they made her uncomfortable. As the bell rang, signaling the end of the school day, Zara stood up slowly, feeling a little lighter than before. It wasn't a perfect solution, and she still had so much to learn, but she was beginning to see that emotions weren't something to fear. They were just another part of life. She didn't have to understand them all right now. With Lily walking beside her, Zara felt a glimmer of hope. She didn't have to face this new world alone, and maybe, just maybe, she would find the strength to face her fears and embrace what was to come. The conflict was still there, still building, still pushing at her from all sides. But Zara was no longer running from it. She was learning to move through it one step at a time. Zara stood at the edge of the schoolyard, the cool breeze brushing against her glowing green skin. It was a strange feeling, standing here after everything that had happened. She had learned so much, yet so little. Her mind raced as she thought about all the emotions she had struggled to understand, the ones that had made her feel lost, confused, and sometimes even terrified. She had experienced more feelings in the past few days than in her entire life, and each one seemed more overwhelming than the last. But there was something else, something that felt different today. The overwhelming emotions were still there, but they didn't feel as suffocating as before. It was as if something inside her had clicked, and now, for the first time since she'd arrived, Zara felt like she could finally breathe. She wasn't running anymore. She wasn't avoiding the feelings that scared her. She had come to realize that these emotions, as chaotic and unpredictable as they were what made humans who they were. They were a part of the experience of being alive. And maybe, just maybe, they were worth experiencing after all. As she walked back towards the school building, Zara felt a sense of determination settle in her chest. The classroom no longer seemed as intimidating. She had spent so much time trying, to escape from it. But now she knew that if she truly wanted to understand this world, she had to face it head on. She had to stop running and start embracing the emotions that had once seemed so foreign to her. The sound of the school bell rang in the distance, signaling the start of the next class. Zara took a deep breath, feeling the weight of everything she had learned pressing down on her. She wasn't sure if she was ready, but she knew she couldn't wait forever. She had to go back. As she walked through the hallways, her thoughts drifted to her conversation with Lily earlier. It had helped more than she had realized. Lily had told her that it was okay to not have everything figured out right away. It was okay to feel lost sometimes. And most importantly, it was okay to not be perfect. Zara didn't have to understand everything in one day. She could take it one step at a time. The classroom doors swung open as Zara entered, and the familiar faces of the students greeted her. They had all been watching her earlier, but now they simply nodded in acknowledgement as she walked in. Mr. Davis smiled warmly at her, but there was no judgment in his eyes, only understanding. "Welcome back, Zara," he said kindly. "Are you ready to continue?" Zara nodded, her heart beating a little faster. But this time it was different. This time she wasn't afraid. She had made it this far. She had learned how to face her fears, how to accept the emotions that came with being human. And she wasn't going to let fear control her anymore. The lesson continued, but Zara wasn't focused on the words being spoken. Instead, she was focused on herself. For the first time, she allowed herself to feel everything. She didn't hold back. As Mr. Davis spoke about emotions, love, and pain, Zara let herself feel them. They didn't feel as overwhelming anymore. She realized that she didn't have to understand everything at once. She just had to let herself experience it, one moment at a time. As the class went on, Zara felt a warmth fill her chest, a feeling she hadn't expected. It wasn't fear or confusion, but something softer, something more familiar. She felt a sense of connection to the humans around her, a connection that went beyond logic or reason. It was the connection of shared experience, of shared feelings, and in that moment, Zara knew that she was not as alone as she had once thought. At the end of the lesson, as the bell rang again, Zara stood up, feeling a sense of pride she hadn't expected. She had made it through another class, and she had learned something invaluable. She had learned that emotions weren't something to fear, they were something to embrace. As the students filed out of the classroom, Lily walked up to Zara, her eyes bright with encouragement. "You did it," she said softly, her smile wide. "You faced your fear. You faced your emotions." Zara smiled back, a genuine smile that reached her eyes. "I think I'm starting to understand," she said, her voice steady. Lily grinned. "I knew you would. You're stronger than you think." Zara felt a surge of gratitude. For the first time since arriving, she felt like she belonged. She wasn't an outsider anymore. She was part of this world, part of the shared experience of being human. As Zara walked out of the classroom and into the bustling hallway, she couldn't help but feel a sense of peace settle over her. She had faced the fear of the unknown, and she had learned something far more valuable than any lesson about human history or math. She had learned about herself, and that was the greatest revelation of all.